Hi, welcome to Beat Burnout. Stacy Brookman is a resilience and life storytelling expert. She's interviewed fascinating people on the Real Life Resilience podcast. She helps smart, outwardly confident women who secretly have low self-esteem issues due to an emotionally abusive partner take back control and begin to develop the resilience they need to be themselves again. We really welcome Stacy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Tell us about your journey and how are you doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, like you said in the introduction, I'm a resilience expert and life storytelling expert, and I came to this through the School of Hard Knocks and some additional education. But yeah, I was in a bad marriage to a very emotionally abusive person. I didn't know what that was at the time, but having gone through that, I discovered writing and I discovered how to become resilient. And resilience isn't just pushing through and just buckling down and getting your stuff done. That is not resilience. I discovered you can do that, but then your life is falling apart in other ways, or your body is falling apart in other ways. So to be a resilient doesn't mean just being strong and powering through really tough situations or tough times in your life. It means being able to bounce back and in different ways. And so that's what I teach. I teach resilience. I teach how to write your life stories in order to bring in that resilience and bring in that joy in your life in the midst of tough times. And so, yeah, I discovered that and I've been teaching it ever since.
Wow. I think resilience is something a lot of social workers and healthcare professionals know about. They see it every day in their work. And I think, like you were actually saying, they obviously usually think it's about toughing it out. But because they're so used to seeing it, like every day in their clients and their patients, they are usually very resilient within themselves. They've had hard knocks, or they've had whatever, but they find it really hard to ask for help. And why do you feel it's important in your experience to actually admit that you've been resilient, but it's now getting really hard? You need some support. Why do you think it's important?
First of all, it is really important to have support and to do self-care and to recognize that before you get completely burned out. You've got to be able to not necessarily tough it out, but show your weaknesses and dig into that tough time in your life. And that's when I teach this, I tell people to think about some of the toughest things that you've experienced and write them down. Write them down as far as, what did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel? What did you experience? What did you taste? And what did you touch? Use all of the senses. And when you're doing that, because all your experiences that you've had, your tough experiences, are running around in your head, especially if you're like working with clients and you're hearing their tough stories. And you're experiencing, when you do that, vicarious trauma. Like you're just hearing somebody else's traumatic story, or bystander trauma, some people call it. And bystander trauma is just as traumatic. Your brain doesn't recognize the difference. And so it is causing chaos in your brain. And writing down and recognizing that, first of all, that's what's happening. Then writing down all of that helps to take those traumatic memories and put them in black and white, so they like normal. So when you experience trauma, whether it's bystander trauma, vicarious trauma, or direct trauma, those memories are actually stored in a different part of the brain than regular memories. And those are the memories that come back to haunt you time and time again. They hide from you at first, and then maybe a certain smell, or somebody says a certain phrase, or a piece of music or something, and boom, come right back to stress you out and cause you all kinds of physical and emotional chaos in your body. And when you write those down, you have to find words, first of all, for what's happened to you. Find words for the grief you're feeling for somebody else, or the grief you're feeling for yourself, or the tough things. And yes, it's tough sometimes to recount that, but it's going to empty that out of your head and allow you to have the power over that traumatic experience, not that experience to have the power over you. And that's a beautiful thing.
Can you say what you just said again? Because I think that's really crucial for a lot of people.
Which part?
About the fact that you don't want that experience to have power over you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as those memories are going around in your head, causing chaos, and you don't like specifically remember them, but they are still in your head, they're still affecting you. Mm-hmm. And when you write them down, you gain power over those memories. Those memories don't have power over you. If they're in your head, hiding back and forth, popping out whenever, they have power over you. You don't know when they're going to come back. You don't know how you're going to act or react based on what those memories are doing in your head. But when you write them down, they can't hide from you anymore. And you gain the power over them.
And I know as a writer, as a poet, I always found my poetry to write down my poetry when I was really affected by a client. I found that very soothing and healing. It was like that poem was like a witness to my
pain. Right.
So certain clients obviously sometimes affect you a lot more than other clients. So I always remember just seeing that poem on that piece of paper and kind of just being able to kind of allow myself to feel whatever I was feeling really helped. And I just want you to go back a bit and explain a little bit more of how via the writing.
There have been a lot of different studies about writing. In fact, it's called the 2-minute miracle, because writing just 2 minutes a day, maybe in the morning, in a certain way, you've got to write about your feelings, about some of the tough things that have happened to you. Writing just 2 minutes a day can boost your immune system. If you have chronic pain, it can ease chronic pain. What else? Some folks who have had headaches, it's helped relieve those. So there's a lot of studies that point to the physiology, but also the psychology. For instance, when I was going through my traumatic event, which was marriage to a sociopath, very traumatic, and then when you divorce a sociopath, it gets 100 times worse. So my brain was in chaos. I was fuzzy. I was trying to keep the wheels on the bus going, trying to power through. And what I was really doing, accepting this abuse. Really, honestly, I was just accepting it. I could have stepped out at any time in the 10 years. I did not. I chose not to. I thought what I could do would be to help and fix it. And that's not what happened. That's not what happens with a sociopath or narcissist. But if you are going through any of this, your brain is in chaos. Sometimes you are forgetting things. Your brain is foggy, or you're in the middle of something and you forgot what you're doing. You just fall in bed, just exhausted. And it's because those memories are affecting you, whether you realize it or not. So writing down, and I teach people, like I said, to write the senses, because when you write the senses, what did you feel? What did you taste? What did you touch? What did you smell? What did you see? At that moment, pinpoint one moment in time and start writing, not even sentences, just snippets about all of those sentences. That starts coming back, and then you can release that onto the page, because your brain is, okay, it's big, it's awful, it's horrible. It feels like it's happening to you, but it happened to somebody else, because you're getting those stories from your clients or whatever, various trauma. Your brain doesn't know the difference, and so it's trying to protect you. And what you really need to do is write it down in black and white. And when you do that, your brain says, oh, I get that. Okay. And you are much more clearer. Okay, this is not happening to you. You don't need to raise all the inflammation in your body. You're not in a fight or flight at a point in time right now. It's okay. And you can release that onto the paper, and then you never have to show it to anybody if you don't want to. But it's something that is definitely healing.
I just think it's such a powerful but very simple tool that you've given to people listening today. Write for 2 minutes, and that actually boosts your immune system. It helps you on a psychological level. And this is what other speakers have said, that our mind, body, and spirit, they're all connected anyways. We're all
Absolutely
integral, we're all one. They're not separate. And when it comes to vicarious trauma, and when you've been totally burned out by the work that, you know, social workers and healthcare professionals do, it is really fuzzy. What is your feeling and what is the client's feeling? What is your experience and what is the client's experience? It all gets like really enmeshed.
mm-hmm. And you don't realize it.
And majority of the time, like you're saying, you're not even conscious of that. I just wanted to ask you, your own experience sounds so dark, yet you are doing such healing work now. What was that really darkest moment that made you realize you wanted out of this very destructive? Because when it comes to emotional abuse, when it comes to narcissistic abuse, it's usually very hard to even define as a person that's going through it. And then even talk about it, because unlike physical abuse that you can actually see some of the scars and the injuries, they're really internal. So what was that darkest moment that made you realize you needed to get out?
That's a really interesting question, because I did not even get out for me. So I was in our den one time and my daughter wanted to get on the computer. So I helped her get the password. She was 7, I think, or 8 years old. And my husband's email was up at the time. And he had posted an advertisement on Craigslist. And it was advertising himself for couples, to help with couples. So it was like, oh my gosh. And it struck me that what was happening was not just me accepting all of this crazy behavior that he had. My daughters, my 2 young daughters, were watching this, were watching me accept it. And just by seeing that, they were in danger of repeating it themselves. And that I could not bear. I could not bear to imagine them in a relationship like I had, because I knew it was a bad relationship. And I struggled. And I thought just being strong and bucking up was the right thing to do, when really I was just accepting a really sad situation, an abusive situation. And so I had to step back and say, you know what? I don't want this for my girls. And I need to change it before it's too late. And I need to get them into a healthy environment so they can see healthy relationships. And so that's the moment I changed. I turned it around. I did. I'm like, I'm not accepting it. And it wasn't for myself. It was for my girls, but it benefited me tremendously.
And I think you broke that cycle. That takes a lot of courage and that takes a lot of faith. And you obviously have a lot of, it's a testament to your strength. And I hope, but listening to Stacy, it kind of shows that sometimes you've just got to admit it must have been a very painful truth.
Yes, it was, because as human beings, we always pull the wool over our own eyes. We don't want to see those things that are right in front of us. And maybe a friend sees it, and maybe they've tried to tell you, and you just ignore it. And that might be in your job. Maybe you don't see how your job is affecting you, but it really is, because you're like, nope, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm just going to keep on going.
And I know a lot of social workers and healthcare professionals, one of the reasons why they actually even start the work, they embark on these brilliant, wonderful professions, to being so giving, is sometimes they themselves have had a really dark experience, whether that's sexual abuse, whether that is narcissistic abuse, whether that is domestic violence, whether that is having somebody very close to them die of a terminal illness. Usually, not all the time, but majority of the time, they've experienced a real dark pain, and they want to reach out and be there for someone else when nobody had been there for them. But then in helping others, they forget about their own pain, and it gets buried.
It gets buried, but it's still there until you write and get it out. That's the beauty. In fact, practically nobody gets out of childhood without some sort of emotional scars and wounds. And we take those experiences with us into adulthood, and that's how we operate in the world. Dr. Dan Allender and Allender Center does a lot of work with that. And let's say something happened to you as an 8-year-old or a 16-year-old or 14-year-old. You take that 8-year-old mind at that moment with you, and you make an agreement with yourself. I am never going to trust an adult, or I'm never going to do this, or I'm always going to, whatever that agreement is, you take that into adulthood and it affects the way you operate. For me, it was my voices should not be heard. I need to stand in the corner. You're not worthy of being heard. And therefore, and this is what I discovered by writing, I don't raise my hand. I never raised it in kindergarten, grade school, high school, adulthood. I didn't say, no, that's not right. And I only found it at age 45 through writing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't like that life theme. That's my life theme. I don't like, that's awful. I thought I was a professional woman. But no, when I look back, that's the pattern. The pattern is I didn't stop and say, that's not right. Because I had pulled the wool over my eyes and I had made that agreement. My voice should not be heard. But once I started writing and I found it, oh my gosh, I am shouting from the rooftops.
And it seems like what I'm hearing and what my gut is picking up here is by writing, you tend to then rewrite the patterns in your brain, some of those neural pathways.
Right.
Start rewriting your story.
You can, absolutely. You're really discovering yourself. You're discovering what you're really all about. And like I said, I was a professional woman. I thought that's how I operated in the world. That was who I was, a mom, a businesswoman. And really, I wasn't. That what was making me do things or not do things or not stand up for myself was that little 8-year-old voice, or that little saying, your voice should not be heard. And so once you discover that, you're discovering yourself. That's amazing. And then you can change it. You can rewrite your story.
And I think, no, I know what you're like saying, that those lies that we tell ourselves, a lot of those lies, I mean, it's so easy to lie to everybody else. That's the easy part.
Everything's fine.
That's easy. But the lies we tell ourselves, sometimes they almost become imperceptible. We sometimes make them the truth, which is not really the truth. We say it so much to ourselves.
You start believing your own lies true.
I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I know I've said this to myself majority of my life. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I'll never become anything.
Or for the people listening here, if I can only help this next person, or if I can only help these more people, I will be worthy. If I can only work harder, if I can only expand the hours in my day to help other people, if I can only do that, then I will be worthy of love.
And then it's like, no matter what you do, you can never then relax. You can never
It never is enough.
You never feel deserving of that, whatever it is, of that holiday, of that time off, of that time with your family or time with your friends. You never feel deserving because you're constantly trying to prove that you are good enough. And here I'm not, this was my reality, like Stacy's reality, majority of my life. And sometimes it's a gradual thing. It's not a click. It's not
right.
It's sometimes a gradual thing that when you start re-recording that self-talk, it then becomes that you stop telling that lie to yourself, and gradually it becomes a different self-talk. And that's what I wanted to ask you, in the fact that there is a lot of shame and embarrassment. I know I've worked with women and girls in narcissistic, who've had experienced narcissistic abuse, and there's a lot of shame and embarrassment. And can you tell me, how can it be easier to move from these feelings, to take some action and to get lasting change.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is why I think writing is so good. It's so universal and it can be so private. So part of that shame is I don't want other people to see how bad I am or that I am not worthy, because you're still telling yourself you're not worthy. I don't want other people to see that and know that. Oh my goodness. For instance, for me, I climbed the corporate ladder. Every time I got a promotion, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm still down here. I felt in my mind, I was still down opening mail 8 hours a day. That's who I was. And it was a fraud. And I just had to try to keep up just to show people that I wasn't a fraud. And I didn't think myself as worthy of that. Writing down your feelings, writing down the points in your life. And I take people through a process on embracing your stories, enabling your stories, enhancing your stories, and elevating your stories. And when you pinpoint those critical points in your life and you start writing about them in private, and this is not your 8th grade English teacher writing. You don't have to worry about grammar. It is just free writing, which you don't even use capitals or punctuation, nothing. You just start writing and keep on writing or typing. And what that does is it allows you privately to get that mess out and acknowledge it, look at it and say, oh my gosh, that's not true. That's my 8-year-old self talking about that. And that's what I've been thinking all along. Oh, wow. I'm much better than that. I deserve that promotion, or I deserve to be happy. And so again, all this chaos is in your head. And once you get it out in black and white, it's like a third person or a sounding board. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just wrote that. That's not true. But I must be believing it somewhere because I've written it. And so you get that clarity. Every single person that writes and I talk to about it, they come back and they say, oh, the clarity I gained. Wow, how cool is that? And so it's amazing. So that's one of the ways you can do it just with yourself. And you can share it with somebody. That would be the next step, is share it with somebody close to you who believes in you, who's your cheerleader. And if you don't, find a writing group that you can share it with, because writing groups are usually very supportive.
Sometimes it starts off with that small step of the page just being your witness, the page being your support, and then thinking about, like slowly seeing who you could share it with. I know I find sometimes sharing some of my poetry really very difficult, because it's like somebody else is then going to kind of judge my baby, like judging any of my stuff, like, and then maybe going to a writing group. And there are plenty now, even online. You don't even need to leave your house. And you talked a lot about how writing helps you navigate and process your feelings. And now I know this is also a sign of vicarious trauma, and when you get traumatized by the work that social workers and healthcare professionals do, like we were saying before, that it all gets really enmeshed and tangled, and you don't know if it's your client's feelings or even what you're feeling.
Your brain doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
It's trauma.
And then I know the kind of work I do with my clients is a lot of the time those feelings get housed in your body, and they get lodged in a part of your body. And I use a lot of visualization with with the client to get grips with, how does it look like, how does it feel, how does it taste, what kind of texture is it, and then it then gets it a little bit unmeshed and
untangled.
Could you talk a little bit more, because it sounds like you're being very kind and gradual with yourself and how you do, because I'm really glad that you said that you don't have to share, it doesn't have to be published. And then I think a lot of the time in the world that we live with, the world of social media, it feels like this public and private is blurred. Could you a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can actually. So first of all, you do not have to be a writer to write about your life stories. That's, like I said, it's not 8th grade English. Nobody's going to penalize you. It doesn't matter if you're a really horrible writer. This is still going to help you. And so that's what I teach people, is first embracing your story. Embrace that you have a story. Embrace that you really should get it down on paper. And the next step, enabling the story, is allowing it to speak to you by crafting those stories into, okay, here's this part of my life, or here's what's happened here. Let me explore that a little bit more, because obviously it's come up. Let me dig into it a little bit more. And again, they're still messy. They're still ugly. Everybody's first drafts are ugly. In fact, Hemingway's first drafts were really ugly. Yeah. This is not about something that you're going to put into a book yet, unless you want to. But then it's going to be ugly first draft. And I encourage people, it is called the 2-minute miracle, but I encourage people to free write. Get up in the morning, spend 10 minutes free writing. Just whatever's in your head, if it's your grocery list or whatever, your brain's going to keep throwing out junk. But eventually, if you keep writing, don't lift your pen from the paper, don't lift your hands from the keyboard, keep typing, eventually those golden nuggets of your subconscious are going to come out. You really once you experience that, it's really amazing. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't stop writing. I can't stop. It's amazing. And you get all of that out. But then I do encourage people, and that's easy to get people started. Just start writing about, just pick a moment in time, a point in your life, a pivotal moment, a graduation, a birth, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be, you have to find the worst moment. Just find something to start writing, because your stuff will come up. It'll get there. But then you can start to polish it if you choose. And here's what I tell people. What if somebody is about to go through what you're going through or what you've gone through? What if somebody is also having the same doubts, fears, stressors, all of that sort of thing, and your writing could help them? Wouldn't you want to share that? And so not everything that you write is going to be shareable. Not everything is going to be shareable right away. In fact, people try to write in terms of story. Don't even write that. That's not how anybody writes. You write it, all the junk, and then from there you pull out the golden nuggets and you can craft it into a story. And I teach that as well, but you've got to get that junk out of your head first. It's going to look ugly. Get that ugly first draft out of there. And then start taking another moment in time and start writing about that. And the beautiful thing is you are going to heal as you go along. I tell people to make a list of 15 or 20 turning points in your life. And then make a list of maybe 5, 10, 15 conflicts you've had in your life. And then make a list of maybe 5 or 10 things desires that you've had in your life. And when you look across all 3 of those lists, is there anything that stands out that's on 2 or all 3 of those? That's where you start writing. Indicate where you need to start writing.
Again, these gems of wisdom that Stacey's giving, they're priceless. And we talked a lot about how writing can help. What do you think are the top 3 signs or symptoms that people need to watch out for, that they might be on their way to burnout?
That is a good question. I would say the first couple of signs, one of them is if you have pops of anger for no reason. And I don't know if you're out there and you're a mother and perhaps you have yelled at your kids when they have not done anything wrong. For me, it was like I was angry about something and they didn't do anything wrong and I just yelled. And I'm like, that's not right. That's not good parenting. And I was ashamed and embarrassed, but it was bubbling out. I was completely stressed out. And that was one of the ways it came out. If you are constantly gritting your teeth or constantly trying to be in total control of your emotions and tamping them down, that's a dangerous sign. And then I would say physically, if you are starting to get aches and pains and you feel like maybe it's just age, it might not be age. It might be the inflammation caused by all of the stress you've been through for so long, ignoring it. And so that could come out in a number of forms, lots of hair, headaches, weight gain, and stuff like that. And gosh, if I'd have known the stress caused weight gain, I would have taken care of that a long time ago. But yeah, I would say some of the physical, psychological, and emotional triggers are things that indicate that you need to write.
thank you, because I know a lot of social workers and healthcare professionals like ignore, I've ignored it within myself. So it's not easy to take the time out in our busy, stressful lives, with the job having so much demand of our time and our energy. But if we do not replenish ourselves and give ourselves, don't give yourself that time and energy and space, you're going to be you're going to be giving from an empty cup. And it's so important to top up that cup and then drink. So then you can then give more. You are such givers anyway. You're so generous with your time and your energy. Your clients know that. That's why they keep coming back to you. You need to give to yourself. You need to allow yourself to give. And you have been so generous with your time, Stacey. I could really, seriously, I have to stop myself and wean myself to.
We could talk all day.
Yeah, because I am learning so much. As a coach, as a writer, I am learning so much. I'm just listening to you. I don't know what I kind of wanted to. I have to thank you so much for your time, and thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. This is the Burnout series. Bye.